Just in time for Indiana's bicentennial celebration this year, an Indiana author, Doug Wissing, has a new book of essays about Indiana and what it means to be a Hoosier. The book is entitled In Writing, Uncovering the Unexpected Hoosier State. And Doug, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us. Tell us about this book of essays, which you have written. It's actually a compilation of essays from your many years of writing. What's the goal of the book?
Well, the origin of the book is I've written hundreds of articles about Indiana, and the Indiana Historical Society and Indiana University Press decided they wanted to co-publish a selection of those essays that essentially presented an alternative history to Indiana. It's a bicentennial year, and we wanted to uncover a different way of thinking about Indiana. So people had fodder to talk to their families on the coast who ask, why do you live in Indiana? You know, and uncover the interesting and the somewhat sometimes idiosyncratic ways that we are. So, you know, some of the things have to do with, for instance, early in the 20th century, the only place you could learn to speak Tibetan was in Indianapolis. And Indiana and Tibet have a connection that goes on for far more than a century. Or there is an article that the New York Times published of mine about, that's an art review of the Kinsey Institute's collection of sex objects that are very artsy, as you can imagine, and colorful.
Yes.
Or there's a long essay about the best brewery in the world, which happens to be up in the Calumet region, Three Floyds, and when the day when they'll release what becomes the rarest beer on the planet.
Well, your book comes at a perfect time as Indiana celebrates its bicentennial in 2016. What do you hope the book can possibly contribute to an appreciation of Indiana, especially among those who aren't from the state?
Well, I think the book will help them understand the state in greater depth. There are stories that go back to the beginning of our history. There are stories that help them understand part of the complexity of what's here. We're a very diverse state, both geologically and culturally. And we've had these long connections to the world that sometimes gets lost. You know, for instance, 90% of the stone buildings in America come from the Stone Belt down by Bloomington. So there's a story in there of, including Manhattan's Fifth Avenue or the Pentagon or the great mall in Washington. And there's one story where I'm following limestone from the original hole that the Empire State Stone came out of, from the State Building, because they discovered that all the corners were cracking. They had to replace them. So they went back to the original hole, and I followed the stone from the quarry hole through the mill, and then with the truck driver. And at the end of the story, I'm on the outside of the Empire State Building at about the 60th floor, holding on to a guy wire while I'm trying to take notes, which was really tough. And,
Good luck with that.
Yeah, the catwalk would be doing this, and they'd go, oh, this is not so bad. It's when it swings all the way away from the building. You know, there's people that are used to doing this. So we're connected. Yeah. Indiana is connected to the larger world, and we're everywhere. I mean, I wrote a book about a Hoosier who was the person who introduced Tibet to America. There's another long story at the end. I've been covering the war in Afghanistan. I'm with a group of Hoosiers in the most violent province in Afghanistan. It's a group of farmer soldiers who were trying to do winning hearts and minds work. So it's about both who we are in a specific way and how we connect into the larger world.
And it encompasses such a diversity of topics and people that people will not just be able to pigeonhole Indiana in terms of one stereotype. You know, it's sometimes jarring to us who live in Indiana to see how other people view Indiana in not the same way that we ourselves do. Is that part of your goal as a writer, to help bridge that understanding or close the gap in understanding?
Yeah, sometimes I think we have an imposed inferiority complex, and it's important for us to try to find the poetry of our place, to try to celebrate who we are as a people, and to have a rejoinder to sometimes dismissive comments.
But to help other people not just us, understand about Indiana to erase the stereotypes as being a backwater cornfield, that kind of view toward Indiana.
That's exactly right.
So, the book again is In Writing, Uncovering the Unexpected Hoosier State by author Doug Wissing. In Writing, that's the abbreviation for Indiana IN. You mentioned Afghanistan. You've written another book that we have talked about on our in our discussions before. You're the author of 10 books, including Funding the Enemy, How U.S. Taxpayers Bankroll the Taliban. That book has attracted the attention of a lot of U.S. policymakers. Are you continuing to keep your eye on Afghanistan and the international situation?
Yeah, I've been back there, and I've got a new book coming out on Afghanistan, the Afghanistan War, which is entitled Hopeless but Optimistic, Journeying Through America's Endless War in Afghanistan, which is unfortunately another critique of our failed counterinsurgency there.
So more on that coming up in the fall.
In the
correct?
fall, that's right.
Again, In Writing, Uncovering the Unexpected Hoosier State, and best of luck in the publication of this book just in time for the bicentennial. Good timing.
Thank you.
Okay, Doug Wissing, the book is available from the library's collection in addition to your finest bookstores here in Indianapolis. Look for more at ndpl.org.